Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Transformed You. I'm Mark DeJesus here with my lovely, amazing co-host, my wife, Melissa. We're glad to be here for another season. We're back, and we're going to address a subject that's near and dear to our hearts. We actually sent a poll out to our mailing list asking people what they thought about some of our subjects that we were considering, and this one was at the top of the list. We are going to get into a series about what it means to love yourself the way God loves you, to love yourself with the love that God has for you. And I believe that the subject of loving yourself is a very important topic that I think believers need to talk more and more about. I think it can be highly controversial.
True.
Depending on where you come from. If you misunderstand what the subject means, many people can struggle with, does this mean you're super selfish? Now we're self-centered. We're becoming a narcissistic people. And I want to say those are valid thoughts and valid questions. But there is a growing awareness that there are aspects of the Bible that speak to seeing yourself through the lens of God's love and His grace. Learning what it means to love yourself. It affects our relationships. It affects our marriages. And it was a game-changing subject for my life. I've never been the same since addressing this subject. So we want to delve into it. We want to discuss it. We'll talk about some of the hang-ups and what the journey looks like. We want to give you opportunity to send in questions too. We'll address questions more and more in these episodes, so feel free to do that. You can go to markdejesus.com, go to the contact section, and you can just put in your question, send it to us, and we'll make it part of our discussion, our conversation. So
Excellent.
Today we want to kind of get into the learning process, like learning what it means to love yourself the way that God loves you, to understand in a healthy way. And maybe we can begin by going into our own journey.
Yeah, and I even as you're saying it about the poll and what people's responses were regarding this topic, I'm not surprised. This has been a major theme for you and I in understanding it and ups and downs of it, having tough days with loving yourself and all of that in between. So I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all that this was the top. You know, we need to learn how to love ourselves better. So I think it would help people too if we want to start, helping people know our journey. People love that. I hope you do.
Right.
I think we got some good stories.
Well, isn't that the best way to be an encouragement to others, is just share your own journey and your own process?
So what do you think was there a defining moment for you, or do you feel like that it was just like a slow burn to get there, to go, okay, this is my next layer? What was it for you when you had that illumination of, wow, I really need to see this in my life?
I look at probably 3 stages. One was in my single years, where I started to realize, man, I am in this war against myself. Started to see these like patterns that I would fall into, but still not fully awakened to the fact that this is like a major subject I need to address. Then we got married. And then I realized quite honestly.
Wait, marriage will really confront the fact of like love in every level. So yeah.
I find marriage brings out your lack of self-love issues more than anything else.
True.
More than anything else. And it did that for me. I know it did it for us, but I'll just speak for myself. I realized that there was this like irritability that would constantly ebb and flow to me. Just this kind of cranky anger, this sense of like, just woke up on the wrong side of the bed, and it would want to lash out at you.
Right.
And make you the target.
That's an important topic, and we can explore that too. But I want to just, as you're saying it, I want to pause on that for a second, because I think a lot of people really, really relate to that, because we will take those feelings and obsessively think about them and go, it must be the other person. It's got to be the other person. I married the wrong person. I should be madly in love with them. Something's wrong. It's them. I made a bad choice. And really, a defining point of maturity and how you're growing is going, wait a second.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll let you follow that up.
Well, I realized that I wasn't I had no clue how to love you, and it was coming out of how I saw myself. So whenever we have certain feelings, here's the thing that we need to work on, I think, when it comes to discernment. When we have a certain feeling, you are wired as a human being to create like a meaning and an association with it. Mm-hmm. So I wake up and really it's self-hate rising up in me. I don't like myself. And it needs a target. When you don't love yourself, it needs a target. You either go, I got to deal with this. This is an issue in me, or you got to blame someone else. You got to be like Adam and go, it's the woman you gave.
Right, which is what most people do, because it's really excellent self-awareness to even say, oh, I got to deal with this inside of me. Like that's right. Most people don't do that. And I'm not saying that in a condemning way. I feel like I'm just being honest about, we all do it. Right. It's not a natural inclination to go, let me self-reflect and why am I having this feeling? It's usually blame city. Mm-hmm. So
totally. So we go through, entering into marriage. Your brain wants to create an association with this feeling. So you feel basically crappy about yourself. You just kind of feel like you don't feel great. Right. So the brain then searches for associations. And I think the enemy's probably involved in this too, of like giving you a narrative. Oh, it's because you married the wrong person. Or it'll nitpick. Oh, she didn't do the dishes well. Or, pot roast again for dinner. Whatever. Whatever. Kind of thing you want to fly off the handle.
Right.
Or like.
You'd be like, soup isn't a meal. No, sorry.
Yeah.
That's the toilet.
The toilet seat, So then you get into like stupid arguments. And, I have this new theory that I've been like working, that basically all arguments in marriage are stupid. Because what's underneath them isn't what you're arguing about.
Right. That's an excellent point.
Right?
Yeah.
So I went around the mountain enough times relationally to realize it wasn't the other person, this is me. And usually it takes a long series of that. But if you're married and you don't have like other people that can shine a mirror or like bring a mirror in and kind of go, hey, here's some things you need to work on, you will always secretly blame your spouse. Mm-hmm. And even if there's legitimate reasons, like if your husband's super passive, or if you feel like your wife's always a nag, or if you just feel like you're not in the same page.
They're verbally abusive. There's things, right.
So the healthiest thing is to go, all right, what's going on in me? And that doesn't mean tolerating abuse. That's another subject. But for me, I realized in our marriage, I didn't know how to love you. I thought I was like good at love. Most people think that. But then when you get in like covenant proximity with somebody, now it's like, wow, all these weird things and stuff, thoughts and feeling that I'm trying to process through. So that was another layer of realizing, wow, I'm carrying to my wife my ability to love myself. And the scripture that helped me was the passage where Paul the Apostle said in Ephesians, I think it's 4 or 5, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. A man who loves his wife loves himself. And if you reverse that, it's also true as well. If a man is hateful towards his wife, meaning he's cold towards her, he withdraws love, or he is passive towards her, or doesn't cover her, and it creates an environment where love is absent, and the vacuum of love comes out, hate and fear come in, right? I realized, wow, I'm cultivating towards my wife what I feel towards myself. So stop focusing on her right now and work on how you see yourself. So that was the second layer.
Right. All right. So
then there was a third one.
You want to do the third one, or can I ask a question first?
Yeah.
Well, ask the question and you decide if you want to do the third or, okay.
Sure.
So given that, as we look at that scripture and we look at understanding when it comes to a man loving himself, so let's unwind where that begins. So do you want to do the third layer, the third thing, or do you want to tackle that question? I think because we need to talk about that, which is the core of our ministry.
Yeah, I think let me attack the third one, because I actually didn't realize. Yeah, you would think with what I've shared with you so far, like, wow, this is a major theme, Mark, you're recognizing in your life. I still was kind of chasing a lot of different subjects in my life, and I
important subjects.
Yep. Like fear, anxiety,
rejection
issues. I went through years of like recognizing condemnation and learning the grace of God, but everything really came to a key point about 4 to 5 years ago. Yeah. And it was what launched the writing of this book, God Loves Me and I Love Myself.
Which everybody needs, the foundation of everything right here.
Yeah, because I take what I've learned and I share it, but this is like the real deal. This is like my journey, my process that I'm teaching others, which has even been enhanced since then, since the writing of the book. And it was during trials we were going through. Many, many things that I can get into. We're going through like financial trials. Our son's, diagnosed with autism. We're trying to work out, is what's going on with the church we were pastoring? What do we do? We're kind of at like a place where we need to make some decisions, and we felt this calling to move on to a deeper level. And meanwhile, I realized that I respond to any problem by being really hard on myself. And that hit at the core of the bottom of the root of my heart in the deepest way, is that when tough times come, I'm going to do my best not to hurt anyone around me. Not going to get mad at God, but there's an internal fury that rises up in me that is shame related. I'm flawed. This is because something's wrong with me. Performance related. I did something wrong to cause this. Here's a big one. There's something I'm not doing that I need to be doing, and that is why we are going through what we're going through. Very like black and white reasonings, and not giving room to just go through stuff. Like there's stuff where it's like you just don't know the full reason. And when love is present, you kind of go, it's all right. We've got to figure this out. God's with us, and we'll learn and we'll grow. That really showed me, and the thing I felt God speaking to me was that, and I share this with people when I talk about the book, I was seeking God so intensely. And this was maybe like 6 months to a year before we ended our pastoring and moved on from the church that we had. And we were like going through fast. There was just some breakthrough, some things. We were tired. We were exhausted. There was just so many like broken people coming to us, and we were just so overwhelmed. And I'm like, what's the secret to help get this to the next level? And the only thing I could hear back in my thoughts, I believe it was God, was, I want to teach you in this time how to love yourself the way that I love you. Because every time a trial hits, every time you go through stuff, you beat yourself up.
Right.
So it manifested in a lot of ways. Like I had like a chronic fatigue start to happen, worn out. My skin started like manifesting psoriasis all over my body.
Yep.
To like, I looked like at times I felt like a leper. Like my skin was just like racked up. And
if I could, can I just be vulnerable and share about that time too? There were many times where I would just find you, on the side of the bed crying, just in an absolute breakdown, in searching for answers for so many things.
Yep. Searching for answers, having a lot of battles all at the same time, trying to find our lane to breathe, and hearing God speak to me. That phrase was not helpful for me in that moment. It actually made me more upset because I felt this sense of like, no, that's not what I'm praying about. I need you to bring answers.
We need an answer. Right.
So a lot of people that even I coach, they have that same thing. Okay, I know I'm supposed to love myself, but you know what? I've got this disease. I'm asking God to heal me, or I'm in financial straits. Like, I got to pay my bills. Like, there's this.
Right. Like, what do I got to do? Just give me the thing. I need to know the thing. Right?
So this root remedy can at first sound like insulting.
Yeah. Can sound like, really?
But it's the very thing I needed to long-term deal with where I was going.
Yeah.
And and God needed to deal with this. And so it's like we want him to change our circumstances, but really what we need to do is let him change us. And most Christians cannot experience transformation because love isn't in the midst. So they're trying to change apart from love. It's the biggest thing we do. Like we're trying to get over an addiction. We're trying to do better. We're trying to change our eating habits. You want to lose weight.
You want the answer for the job. You want the answer for your kids. You want all these things, right?
You don't live in an environment of love because love sets the context for everything. And so that became and you would think, in my single days, I'm a hot mess and I'm working through stuff and got OCD, anxiety, depression, all this stuff. I can't keep it together. You'd think that awareness would be yeah, this is a key issue. But it's okay because God works in layers and he addresses the layer you needed to know. That's why I kind of tell people sometimes you got to do the rejection round first and realize the tentacles of that and then kind of move more into loving yourself. It depends, wherever God has you. But that's when I was ready. We don't get the download until we're ready to go, I got to deal with this. So it was in that time that I learned at a deeper level, what does it mean? I learned some habits and mindsets, which then led us to making major choices and decisions. Boom, 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 boom. Right. It unlocked the power of decision for us to move in a new direction to where we are now.
It unlocked confidence in our decision making.
Right.
It unlocked wisdom. It unlocked so many things that are such an amazing, because we're always saying too, especially early on in our journey, we just need a reference for that. We don't have any references for this. We don't have any references for that. And wow, that was a major point of reference physically, mentally, spiritually that we needed to get, that came really at an amazing time. And not just for you, but in how you led our family, which then trickled to me and how I mothered and how I came out of loving myself to be a wife, a mother, a friend, all of those things needed renovation.
Yeah. And I noticed, here's the thing, because when we go through transformation or we're asking God to heal areas of our heart, sometimes it gets discouraging because you don't see the change noticeably. It happens very slow. In this subject, I could see the difference. When I focus my attention on the precepts I talk about in here, and I found that loving you there was this flow to me to love you, to love the children in the midst of stress and things that my
would seem unlovable.
Right.
Would seem very this is really hard.
Abusive people.
Right.
Where, and I'm not saying, I never want to say I'd tolerating abuse. It's never my recommendation. But we interact with unloving people all the time. And you got to know you can't just escape from them and hide from everybody.
Or confront everybody. And there is,
right,
which I said to you the other day, in this topic, I really believe the verse of, quick to listen, slow to speak comes out of this. Big time, because when you are just at peace with yourself and you're I'm good, I'm safe, I'm secure, I don't feel the need to go, let me get the next word, let me say what I have to say, let me do this now. There's a peace that comes over you to then have those responses, which everybody wants to be, right?
Yeah, I kind of define loving yourself as you basically, the flow of love in you, and we'll talk about that in other episodes, is unclogged. So you're able to,
right,
love is able to have its full work in your relationship with God, how you see yourself, you're disentangled and how you see others. So you're able to interact without, so many of us, when we're going through our relational world in our day, we're bogged down with oh, I'm so fat, or I spent time in the Word, and then we're oh, why do I feel I want to scream at my kid?
Right.
It's wind it back. So anyway, I don't know if I'm taking a longer answer for your question, but it started with that. Now, before we get into the other part of your question,
okay,
what was the realization for you? Or you can share it in stages like I did, that you realize this is a subject that you need to address. This is an issue, and you need to receive some healing on it.
Well, for me, and I've shared this in previous episodes about my journey, in when you and I got together and you started to help me. I was already in a journey of trying to get a lot of things healed in my life, but joining with you helped me to put language to a lot of things. So I think that when, which has kind of been great and where there's been a tandem process, whether, I go, man, I'm seeing this, and you're like, yeah, wow, I feel like we seem to kind of like really grab arms with each other, which I think is a great part of our marriage, in where God shows you something and I feel like I'm on the verge of that, and I go, yes. I feel like that's been a huge part of our process, which I think really is what marriage should be. But that's a whole other podcast, but or episodes. But so when you started to go through that, I think you and I were both at the stage of like, what is next for us to understand. And so through your breakthrough in those things, and then using that language, which I think is I can't emphasize enough how important that is when we're talking about how to manage your home and run your spiritual life in your home and manage those things and walk them out. How crucially important it is for the man to understand these things, because we're seeing such an upside down process in the home where most of the time, not all the time, but most, the man is passive and the woman is like spiritually on fire, wanting to grow, church, lead the kids, all those things. We've been very blessed in our marriage that you are a diligent pursuer of the word and your wholeness. And that I've just reaped the benefits of.
But can I jump in? Leading the home was not my default setting.
No, it wasn't.
I thought it was. And then when I got married, like this passive coma came over me, like
right. And my man hating issues of all of the hurt in my life
wanted to rise up against that. Right.
So, right.
And then there was a tension where we actually had to work very hard. We talk about that in our Marriage for Overcomers stuff. But it was, so what I hear you saying is me going, I got to deal with me, opened up like an invitation and like jurisdiction for you to go, it's safe. And it opened up illumination and helped.
Big time.
So what that's doing right now is there's a bunch of ladies watching this and they just went into like fury.
Yeah.
Because
they're like, I don't have, right.
And many of them maybe clicked stop on the video because.
Please don't click stop.
Because they're frustrated because they live with a guy who's really passive. The lights are on, nobody's home.
Yeah.
And they're like, man, I love this stuff, but my guy doesn't
care to even, right.
Right. That's hard. That is so hard. It's a plague.
It is.
And what you don't want to do is you don't want to be the one that says, I got to carry this. Because then it takes a toll on your health, your mental health, and your physical health.
Right. And we're seeing all kinds of, for lack of better words, like spiritual magic that women are trying to do in the home. And you can't do that. It's not on you to make sure that, I don't know, whatever prophet you go to is his, God's going to work in the timing that God's going to work, but there has to be a willing component of the man saying yes to the things of God. So that is a great caveat and a great point. But that still doesn't stop you from you going, okay, this is resonating with me. So no matter what's going on in my home, I still have to be responsible for my journey as the wife and woman.
Where did you come to a realization that, okay, in our marriage, and it wasn't easy, we had to work through, and I was working hard on things and trying to, discover my journey, let that be a blessing to you. But where did you understand too, that like, even with that, you can't coast. You have to take responsibility for your own discovery.
Right, because I could have just as easily gone, oh, Mark's got it. It's easy. He's got the home. I don't have to put any work into it. It'll just like hit me some heebie-jeebie juice and I'll get the benefit.
Right.
Okay. There is blessing in how he leads the home, but I still had a crazy amount of insanity from my upbringing, bad relationship with my dad, stuff that my mom struggled. Like I still have their kitchen sink of stuff too that I had to completely deal with. And at many very poignant times, it hit me of either how I responded to you, how I deflected your love. There was a sobriety that came to me that I desired to say, I want to be beside you doing this. I want to love myself so I can freely give this to you. I want to love myself and have peace in myself so I can love my kids in a better way. I had a very short fuse. I still have to work on my fuse. I still do, because I get caught up in the stuff of the day and we need to get this done, like most moms do. But there's an element when I'm walking out my day in that love for myself and peace for myself, I can just kind of like swat things and deal with things better. And I want to live more and more like that. That's my goal, that every day I increase that and I increase that more and more. So it's a twofold process. Yes, I do have the benefits of how you walk out your life, and we can't get around that and make excuses for that, right? Just because it's not the predominant thing, but there is a blessing, which I hope a man watching this will go, that's what I want to be. That is. And we're not saying you're perfect. We're not trying to go, we're not,
if they're getting that,
we're not saying that.
We need
we're
a whole
not
other
saying
episode.
that. We're talking about the process of what it's like to be diligent in the pursuit of the things of God. So it, for me, was a twofold process. But like I said, I had to have very raw moments with myself. And I came to you many times of being in the shower and crying and saying, I don't want to feel like this. I want to love you. I want to freely love you and receive that love. And us, conversating that out and talking that out, but also me getting good materials, talking out with God, and really working on, what does this look like? Because it again goes back to that reference. I didn't have that. I didn't have that to look to in a mom and an aunt and a grandma. I just don't come from that. And I don't think most people do, of like, what does this really look like to be a godly woman who loves herself and can freely love her husband and kids within that.
And I was taught growing up that it's not even a subject for you to consider.
Right.
You automatically love yourself. And that statement is very flawed, because saying that you automatically love yourself means you were born with a perfect understanding of love. Like, And first of all, love towards self is never meant to end there. If it is, it's not love.
Right.
Okay? Narcissism is not self-love. A person who's narcissistic actually hates themselves. A person who's self-absorbed hates themselves. They're absent of love, because love, when it really has its work, it flows out immediately.
Yeah, which we'll do episodes on that in the future. So
I didn't feel like I even had permission. I had to give myself permission to discover this subject. And that's what we're really wanting to emphasize, I think, in our discussion today, is giving yourself, one, recognition, this is an issue I need to discover. And two, giving yourself permission to learn, because love is patient. And love says, let's learn in the process. Because, I wear glasses, and there are days, this sounds really silly, but there are days where we're working in the yard, stuff gets on my glasses, and I have thought something's wrong with my eyesight. Man, I just can't. I know this sounds really dumb, but I'm just being honest. I'm blinking it and it's not changing. Am I developing an eye problem? Maybe something's wrong with my eyes. And I'll actually go through a mini,
you're going blind,
self-diagnosis of I need to check this. And then I'll take them off and go, oh my goodness, this is so filthy.
Right.
And I'll clean them. To me, letting you receive the love of God, acknowledging it and having it, that's what it does. It's you just see the way you're supposed to see. We don't see ourselves in our world the way we're supposed to. We have certain reactions that are absent of love that get us knotted up in things, make us obsessive, make us bitter, make us angry, make us fearful. We go down all these tangents because love isn't there. When love's there, it's not that it ignores the subject. The Bible's not teaching that love, takes in and pretends it's not there. It creates an atmosphere by which you can look at it in the right context now. Now it puts it into context. Now you can deal with things in a more fruitful way.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what we've really found is that our investment in learning to love ourselves with the love that God has and developing that, everything flows out of that. So that's my goal, is not just to be in this like little cocoon that I just feel great. My goal is that everywhere I go, people get the best of who I am in God.
Yeah.
I get it first in my marriage, first in my family, and then out in my community and those I help. And it just became something that I felt like I can connect to. Like I could see little incremental like results a lot more quicker. Like, wow, I don't have to beat myself up right now. Because everything went back to like, I'm being hard on myself. And that's where most people are. They're very angry because they're really angry with themselves.
Yeah.
They think it's towards that person, but you follow the root system. And it's like, you haven't received. And loving yourself, the key word is receiving. It's about receiving. Have I received? And Christianity forever has been emphasized. And go out there and love everyone. Love everyone. Just love. We need to love. And we did it. We actually did what we were told. We did what we were told. Go love people. Go love people.
No.
Serve. But we got burnt out.
Well, and when you really apply love your neighbor as yourself, really we were loving as ourselves out of an empty tank and just doing works.
Correct. And our relational breakdowns were everywhere, right? And then you blame it on the person. And so Jesus' statement, you shall love your neighbor as yourself, is just kind of run through that a bunch of different times and think through, we do love our neighbor as ourselves, not very well. Because we don't see ourselves very well.
Right.
So therefore, that's what we pour out. And there's almost like a prophetic statement in there that you are going to love your neighbor as yourself. You're going
say
to
it different ways and it'll sound right.
You know, so it's a discovery that, there's a flow that's involved that I had to recognize, and it took me on a journey that was challenging, but yet at the same time very productive, because I was like, I could start to see myself get more untangled because I started having conversations in my head that were more fruitful. I was kinder to myself. I started to be aware of my self-talk and like hold it and go, wait a second, I need love to enter in here.
One thing that did help us that I think is a very simple, practical thing that people can do to kind of jumpstart this is we would look at each other and just go, you're okay. You're okay today.
Right.
We're okay today. You all right? We're good.
Which is what love always says in the beginning, and it stays there, is the self-acceptance. Acceptance. Right. You're welcomed in relationship. This doesn't and for many of us that's foreign. I didn't know that. I didn't know that feeling. So even when you would say it to me, I was like, wow, that really, really helped. And we didn't address the problem.
Right. We didn't have to overtalk it, which we can do. Mark and I are good at that.
At times,
we do, you know.
But I would bring up a subject. Go, hey, I need to talk to. Can I just talk to you about this? It's all right. It sounds like makes sense with what you're going through.
And even just saying to you,
I'm like, wait a second. No, this problem is unacceptable.
Right.
I can't have this anxious thought. It's not of God. I can't feel depressed today. This is not of God. I got to be. And your language to me gave me a nurturing permission to go, you can actually not be okay, and that's all right. And it would diffuse it. It's really, really interesting.
Right.
That grace would diffuse it. So now it gave me a reference to now do that in my own relationship with God, that when I'm having the worst moment, I can go, it's all right.
Yeah.
It's all right. Now what? And then all of a sudden, it would unlock what I needed that day.
Right.
But when I was in that tension, I couldn't see what I needed.
Yeah, you can't get out of it.
It's like a person drowning, and a lifeguard comes, and what does the lifeguard got to say? Calm down.
Right, stop flailing. Right.
Because you're going to drown yourself and me. Like let your arms down, relax. And then what happens? They go, oh. And then they realize they can lean into the rescuing that's there. There's like a truth, or there's a gold nugget in where you're at, but you won't see it unless love creates the safety to go, you're all right to learn.
And that's I think a good takeaway for today in this journey of trying to understand how to love yourself. Simple statements, and even if you have to say them to yourself, put your hand on your heart. I'm safe today. God loves me. I'm going to be all right. I'm going to make it.
Right.
And we would do that for each other. I just even put my hand on you. Babe, you're all right. I love you. You're safe. We do that for our kids because there's an aspect of us wanting to train their brains that even when we're going through something, we have to help them understand, okay, you guys didn't do this right, but you're safe.
Right.
Mom and dad love you, but in truth, we're going to work this out.
Right.
And so that's the thing that I just want to just share today about this journey. There is some simplicity in this mess of trying to heal ourselves.
And I would like to say this to our listeners and viewers. Would you do us a favor and send us some feedback? Because as we maneuver through this, we kind of just want to be led episode after episode. Give us some feedback. And here's 2 questions I'd like to have you consider. One is, where are you noticing that loving yourself is an issue that you need to address? Maybe just a simple sentence or a simple statement. We may not be able to reply, to what comes in, but it'll help us. We will read everything. One is, where are you noticing loving yourself is an issue you need to address? And 2, what makes it challenging for you? What makes it difficult? Can you identify that? Can you identify where it's a battle and what makes it hard to really wrestle with that? Of course, the recommended resource we're going to recommend is God Loves Me and I Love Myself. It's available in paperback, Audible, and also in audio format. I read it. And in fact, there's a special treat towards the end where you actually get to hear my family too contribute to it. That was a lot of fun. But anyway, if you are not an Audible user, you can go to markdejesus.com/Audible, AUDIBLE. And that is a link that'll send you to a spot where you can sign up for a 30-day. It's free trial and you get 1 free book. And if you don't like it, you can just say, I'm out. And I kind of like that. It gives you a chance to try it out. But I find it's just a great resource. Most people are turning to, many people are turning to this resource as a way to process material. If these videos and our content has been something that you really appreciate, go to markdejesus.com and click on the donate button. You can do a one-time donation, or you can consider making it a regular donation, any amount of any kind on a regular basis, or you can just do one time. You may want to consider our transformational tribe. We have a level 1, level 2 that also gives you access to materials. But please understand too, as you consider the donation process, sometimes people write to me and they go, well, I'm in a tough spot, so I can't give. And sometimes I think it's because they think I have to have a certain amount I'm giving to you in order to. We've had people give us very small amounts, $5. This is
very tender-hearted people that, just.
It's
very kind.
It's you just do what you feel led and give out of where you're at and what you have, and I believe God honors that. We don't put pressure on people. We don't super nag you, but we do think it's important to partner in that way and to help support the work that we're doing. We're addressing a subject that is very important. There's not necessarily a lot of talk in Christianity about it, but we're sounding the alarm, we're declaring it, and we want to communicate the subject in a healthy and biblical way.
Yeah.
And in a fruitful way that you can experience. So send us your questions of where you're struggling with this battle, and we look forward to future episodes. So God bless you guys. Have a great week. We're excited to kick off this new season, and it's going to be life-changing for your journey. And you can take advantage of the book. Be sure to get a copy of it. I also have a training course available as well, too. You can see that on my website, markdejesus.com. Until next time, we'll see you again on Transformed You. God bless.
Thank you, everyone.